Welcome, guys, to the Tops. This is the show where we bring you the top 5 lists of something at hand. My name is Craig Perales, and this handsome fellow is Mandrew Montemayor. And today's top 5 is going to be games that were released and we beat in 2020. Now, Andrew, 2020 was stacked with a lot of good games. Did you find it particularly difficult to assemble this list?
I don't think so. I think the list came pretty easily. It was more just kind of numbering what. I think my kind of top 3 were already solidified. It was just really more 4 and 5 for me.
Any, you think, big surprises that anyone's going to think? Or do you think a lot of these games are fall into what most people consider the best games anyway?
I mean, if you listen to me hard, I think my list is kind of different from a lot of people's, especially with like my top 2. So I think I have something different. What about yourself?
I think I kind of fell into the tropes of, because I played a lot of the big, heavy AAA titles, and it was really just the hard part of putting them in what order. I do want to clarify, though, one game that will not be on our list is The Last of Us Part 2, simply because
it's garbage.
Andrew and I actually beat that game together. So, each of our lists is separate. So that game we're going to take off because it was beaten together, and it was pretty much swept a lot of the game awards as the best game. So instead of giving you, making it our number 1 or somewhere on the list of being on there, just know, we had a lot of fun playing it. A lot of people recommend, say that game's the best game of the year. This is going to be our top 5 that's separate from that. So just keep that in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, everyone's already made that kind of their number 1. So I'd rather give attention to something else that maybe I feel deserves it.
Nice. So let's get started. So my number 5 game, because we'll go from 5 to 1, is Immortals Phoenix Rising. Now, this game came out at the tail end of December 3rd. This is another game from Ubisoft. And the reason it took the place instead of a game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla for me is because, and this game follows a lot of the same gameplay mechanics. It was more fun. It was more lighthearted. A lot of the quests were fun to do, and it doesn't hurt that I'm a huge fan of Greek mythology. So the story kept me extremely interested. Where I do like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I felt like it was a lot of repetitiveness. It felt like I was forcing myself to enjoy it, where this game has a lot of fun things. Not only do you start the game, as Phoenix, and the storyline is, the humanity's turned into stone, and the Greek gods need your help because some of them are missing.
Spoilers.
And the story's, it's in the very beginning, and Prometheus is the one telling the story. So you find yourself playing, and you get powers almost immediately. You get your wings, you get the super strength, and then you start collecting more abilities. And the cool thing is, once you start going on a lot of these quests, everything you acquire, whether it be the ambrosia or the lightning bolts or anything along those lines, it all goes towards upgrading something. So it never feels like anything you do in this game is not worth your time, because you can acquire it to build something. The combat is extremely fun to play. You can do kind of distance with archery and things like that, but I really found myself just using the god powers and heavy attack. The voice acting is a little annoying in that game, so I can see where it turns a lot of people off, because in the first 5 minutes, it turned me off. But overall, the game's cool. It's got a lot of cool gear that you can find and unlock. It's got a lot of different weapons and skins, and kind of the heart of it, and this may not be for everybody, is it's a lot of puzzles based to get around things. So there's things to do in the actual island, and then you go into these vaults of Typhon to kind of unlock things, and it's a lot of kind of puzzle solving. So I can see if that's not your cup of tea, this game wouldn't be something you're interested in. But for me, it's fun, and it's very bright. None of the puzzles felt overly complicated. There was nothing I ran into that I had to YouTube, you know what I mean? So there's times where I'm trying to solve a temple in Tomb Raider, and it's fuck, I can't figure out the wind pattern, so I gotta YouTube it. There was nothing in this that felt particularly hard, but a little out of the box. So great game. I had a lot of fun with it. My brother's playing it now. I think you're gonna be playing it soon. And
if it's not next, maybe the game after that or something.
I had a lot of fun with it. So definitely check it out. I think a lot of people slept on it. It's already discounted on it. So if you didn't want to spend $60, a month ago, you could probably snag that game. I think it's at $40-something right now.
Yeah, so I mean, from what I've seen, it looks actually really cool and interesting. I'm definitely ready to try it out. I just have a few other things that I think I kind of want to try and do first. So.
Yeah, definitely. So that is my number 5. A lot of fun. Andrew, what is your cinco?
My number 5 is actually going to be from the start of the year, and it's going to be Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Now, that game came out, and of course, that was published by Bandai Namco, and it was developed by CyberConnect. And what it did was just take Dragon Ball Z and make this semi kind of open world fighting game with some RPG mechanics. And that's actually kind of, the more I thought about it, I don't know what more I would want from a Dragon Ball Z game that could possibly make it better. And I really thought about that today. Like, if I wanted to improve, like, let's say make a sequel or something, I don't know how I would make it better besides, maybe trimming some of the fat, obviously make some of the mechanics better. But just like the bare bones of how the game works, I think it's perfect for what I've always wanted out of a Dragon Ball Z game. Not just some weird, like, left to right fighting where the camera's all over the place or anything. like it felt, yeah, it felt really good to fly in this game. It felt really good to fight in this game, even when you're swapping out different characters and everything. And I actually going through and playing it, I mean, it depends on who you are. I love Dragon Ball Z and I know the story like front to back, that I could hear that story 1,000 times and not get bored of it. That I think if you were to play this game and you had no idea what Dragon Ball Z was and you just wanted to jump in, I think this could almost take the place of like what the modern anime would be if you don't want to spend the 200 hours, 100 hours, the whatever to watch the anime. So I really felt like this captured what the heart of Dragon Ball Z was. It was a perfect translation from a show, a manga, into a video game, which I think is hard enough to do from any other sort of medium.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that game because I also played it as well. It's one of the games that I know we all 100%ed, so it's not over the top.
I didn't. I'm missing like one achievement.
Oh, are you? Oh,
yeah,
it's probably the final boss then at the end.
No, I did that. It was all the collectible stuff, the upgradables.
Nothing was too hard about it. It is, like Andrew's saying, the game is an excellent segue into getting into the Dragon Ball Z lore. The only thing I wanted to point out is I believe the DLC for it is out and it's free. Yeah, for people to play, because I forgot to mention that for Immortals. If you are interested in playing it, the next DLC for it comes out this month, January 21st. So that just kind of reminded me that Dragon Ball Z has DLC out, and I believe it's free to the consumer.
Yeah, so if that's something I'm sure it's cheap right now, I would definitely recommend giving it a go, because that game actually came out great for me.
Yeah, and I really liked how you could start stacking of like how you wanted to do your abilities. Did you want to have Kamehameha and a Super Saiyan 2, or did you want to have the Dragon Fist and Kaioken?
Yeah.
So yeah, super fun. Anything else on Kakarot?
Nah, let's hear your next game.
All right, so my next game was Ori and the Will of the Wisp. That came out in March, and that was done by Moon Studio. This is the sequel to the 2015 Ori and the Blind Forest. Now, if you've played Ori and the Blind Forest, you'll know that game was fantastic. It's hard to find anybody that had any problems with it or any quarrels with it. It did have a couple things that they've since removed, only to sharpen game number 2. So everything you liked about number 1 is in it, and they added so many more elements of kind of like in an RPG nature, because it is a platformer, but it's also an action adventure game, because you're running around, you're collecting abilities, you're meeting NPCs now. So now not every NPC, but certain NPCs will have storyline quests to where you can go find something and then trade something to someone and then get something to unlock the map. It's pretty much it's a perfect example of a Metroidvania. You start off going in one direction on the map, that you slowly uncover things, that you'll eventually get a new ability, then have to go back to unlock something. The game looks stunning. It's one of the best looking. Right when I was telling Andrew earlier, right when I was playing this game earlier in March, I already knew, I'm like, dude, this game is probably going to be on my top 5, just because it's got beautiful set pieces. The music is fantastic, and the best part of all of it, I would say, is the heart of this story is almost brings you to tears. It's one of these things where it follows kind of like light and dark, but it's not necessarily like good versus evil. And you kind of develop the story between Ori and I forget the owl's name if it had one, but you kind of see these cutscenes and you're kind of moved along with it. But I would say the best part is the action combat. It's got replayability. It's got and since this, now that you're hearing this, when I played it, they've updated the fast travel system, because at first the fast travel system can only be done by like these warps. I believe now you can do it anywhere, because when the game did launch, some people did have problems with it. It was buggy, but now it's running the best it ever has. And the cool thing is you can set your guy up to fight in different styles. You can go melee, you can go range, you can go based on the combat. And one of the really cool things that it had was these epic boss fights. Like, it made every boss fight memorable, and it's got cool places to go. You can go from like icy tundra to like burning sands to the jungle to like underground burrows.
Set piece to set
and
piece.
It all looks great. I played it on the hardest mode, so it is a game that, because I'm not the best at playing games on hard, but I think most people could probably tackle it. The boss fights just are extremely unique. Each one, you gotta decide how you're gonna stack your character, because there are passive abilities that you can put on your person, as well as what abilities you want to be able to use, like if you are shooting the arrow or shooting a beam or things like that. So if you're interested in a game that's pure platform with action adventure style that lets you build and discover the world, I would say definitely check it out. And if you're gonna play number 2, then you might as well play number 1, and you've got 2 great games to play back to back.
Nice. I actually haven't even played the first one, so that is something that's been on my list to tackle back to back. But
I need you to play it, man.
I haven't had the time.
It's fantastic.
My number 4 is actually going to be something that just came out recently, and that is going to be Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red. Now, I'm going to put an asterisk next to this because I know there are a lot of people that had problems with this game as far as it running, even able to do anything at all. I played this on a Series X. I didn't run into any major issues. I think the game crashed on me like one time, but I had no game-breaking glitches, no weird loading glitches or anything like that. I maybe had to restart a mission like once or twice, and that is it. And I think Craig had almost like the same experience, just a couple minor things, but nothing out there like where people are giving it like a 2 or something like that. So with that being said, this game I thought was a perfect mixture of... I actually like this more than Grand Theft Auto. I would say it's a good mixture of like Grand Theft Auto with RPG mechanics is the best way to kind of describe it. Because it is first person, you're using guns, there's all kinds of different weapons, but you can also use all kinds of cyber hacks. All the guns do different sort of things depending on what other sort of abilities you have as well too. They all do different damage tiers and everything. And again, you're just going around this massive city, and it is kind of like a view to see. I actually really enjoyed going to the different areas, and you're just doing all these different missions for all these different peoples. And again, it builds up to this grand scale thing that kind of is almost in a way like Grand Theft Auto, except for I actually enjoyed this story far better than Grand Theft Auto 5's. I actually really enjoyed this story. I didn't play as the male version, so I don't know if that makes a difference for anybody. I played as the female, so I kind of really connected with her kind of a lot more because the voice acting was done really well. But I would say more importantly is Keanu Reeves killed it in this game with Johnny Silverhand. I single-handedly think he was the best part of anything acted, anything story-wise in this game was his character, which is absolutely great. And actually what I really like too, again, is this game absolutely nailed its aesthetic as far as being that like neo-noir Blade Runner with that kind of mix of that like Asian American where you have this whole like, Japanese town or Chinatown and everything like that. I felt like it really kind of like nailed it. Really enjoyed this game.
Anything else on that?
No, ready for yours.
All right, my number 3 was Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, this came out on November 12th. This is done by Insomniac. And the reason I love this game is because I was a huge fan of the original Spider-Man for the PS4. And, coincidentally enough, most Spider-Man games are fairly good to play. But this one took kind of like the sandbox open world and kind of put it around New York. And you got to swing around. And the cool thing was it's kind of like an unofficial part 2 because it is a sequel, but it's not going to be Spider-Man 2. This is kind of like Miles Morales is the star of this show. And, for as good as he did in Into the Spider-Verse, I like him better in the Miles Morales video game. You get to see this.
That's cool, because I love that
Yeah,
movie.
You get to see this whole story unfold. It still keeps kind of like what Peter Parker has to deal with. What he has to juggle between Spider-Man and his friends and family. And that is the heart of this game once you start playing. And what they did is they took everything that was exceptionally good in Spider-Man, added it to this one, and kind of removed what was bogging it down. And a lot of people didn't like the stealthy Mary Jane missions that you had to do, or you had like, I think 8 gadgets that you had to do in this one. This one has none of the stealth. It has 4 gadgets that you get to choose from. He's got about 20 to 30 outfits that all give a bonus. The bonuses on all the outfits kind of feel more important and more personal with his combat style, because his combat style looks like a Spider-Man, but it's reinvented. He kind of had his own unique flair on it because he gets other things like the invisibility. He gets his bioelectric attacks. He gets his venom attacks. So the combat looks fantastic. The storyline is great. it's the only, I guess, thing I would harp on that anyone would complain, because like I said, Cyberpunk ended too quick for me. I feel like Miles Morales is a quick game to play, but it was perfect. I didn't feel like it needed to be any longer or any less, because there are collectibles you can still do. The game was the perfect amount of time, and sometimes you need to just play a game that is 20 hours, and it's going to end in 20 hours. And it's got, if you like swinging through New York City, this game does it so well. The only problem I really, really had is I don't think there were enough main bosses in it. There weren't enough iconic figures for him to fight, which in the other Spider-Man game was full of. Miles Morales, I think, has maybe 3, excluding like a VR sequence you can do, because Peter leaves you a bunch of stuff around town. So it's kind of cool, because it's as you're playing it, you're him learning to be Spider-Man, because Peter Parker's out of town. So this game really does shine with Miles Morales not having Peter Parker over his shoulder. So yeah. I really super enjoyed it. Insomniac did a great job, and I cannot wait for the next Spider-Man game in the franchise.
My next game is actually going to be Resident Evil 3 Remake. Now, I'm going to start by saying I know a lot of people kind of shit on this game because they felt like it was short. I don't know if it's rose-tinted glasses, because I personally had played the original OG Resident Evil 3. And I felt like the stuff that kind of was cut from this game didn't really make that big a difference to the story, and it's stuff that I didn't really care for like originally. I felt like this game, and I'll say it right now, I enjoyed my playthroughs of this game more than I did for 2. There's not a section in here where I felt like it was a slog. I'm like, fuck, I got to do this part like again, where 2 had the sewers. I think it definitely suffers from like a sequel syndrome, where if this game had came out at the same time as part of a package, or if it came out before that Resident Evil 2 remake that came out the year before, where it completely reinvented how Resident Evil was played, that this game would be that star. It has a nemesis that stalks you down. In a way, there's kind of a somewhat a closed open world version of Raccoon City, where you can choose to go, do I want to cut through this alley? Do I want to fight this guy right here? Am I going to cut through these buildings? So you kind of do get a feel for Raccoon City as it's currently falling down, with a lot of extra things. I think more importantly, what it really did too is you get an idea that Jill is kind of a better, more badass character by 3 because of what she went through in the OG Resident Evil. This kind of solidified it and redid her character, made her more prominent. She's not afraid to show, like, I'm distrustful of these people. I know what Umbrella did. Like, you might not believe me because no one else knows about it yet, but I do. In this game, she actually has, and it starts with, she has PTSD in a way from what happened in the first one, where she's afraid to get infected because she knows the horrors of what's going on. And then it took another character that's like Carlos, who was okay, and just completely revamped him. So now he's like a lot of people's personal favorite. He is great in this game. He's this cheeseball hero with a heart of gold that just kind of like kills it all the way through. And again, I actually went through and 100%ed this game, and I even speedran it. You can watch that. That's actually on our channel. And I had a blast doing it all the way through. That was like my 8th playthrough doing this game, and I had fun every single time. Like, it wasn't, I didn't hit that wall where I'm like, fuck, dude, I really don't want to do this. This part sucks, whatever. Like, it was just great. And I think it really, again, pointed more towards what I want in the future. Hopefully when they redo a 4, like, feel free to take those liberties, and don't be afraid to trim the fat, because these games are phenomenal. 2 and 3.
Nice. So my number 2 goes into the game I've been waiting forever. This is Final Fantasy VII Remake that came out in March 20th. This is done by Square Enix. Now, this game is you can see I love me some Final Fantasy VII, and a lot of people have been waiting for this game for a long time, and they've been promised that it's been coming for a very long time. We've been waiting for it for a very long time, and surprisingly enough, it came out this year. Now,
didn't flop.
Yeah, it did great for Square, and the attacks are super fun, and the way they added like the ATB system, which the more combos and strikes you do builds up your magic gauge and your special attack gauge, was awesome. It was what they really did that I liked. It was flesh out characters like Jesse and Wedge and Biggs, and these people who kind of had really just a few line of dialogues in the original that are now some people's favorite characters, and have full background stories and parents that you don't know, that you didn't know about before, and it makes you it makes you feel things more for them now than you would have in the original game due to the events that eventually end up happening. And it's really cool what they did with the summons. Look really cool. The combat is awesome, and all I can look forward to now is what they're gonna do with the next part. You know, this is one of these games I do not want them to take their time. Like, please take your time. Do not rush Final Fantasy VII, you know, Part 2, if that's what you're going to call it, because, well, 1 was such a good job, and now at this point, with how it ends, I'm curious of how they're going to move it to number 2, and I'm doing my best not to give spoilers, because I don't know if you've played it, and I know Andrew hasn't yet, so I don't want to give anything away, but as far as reinventing that storyline and putting it into, you know, modern day systems, they did a great job. It looks great, plays great, the voice acting in it is really good, and I gotta say, the development of like the materia and the magic, some people had an issue with it. I really liked it. I really like the fact that you can still move your materia around to set your character to be how you want to be. And the other cool thing is you don't have to just play as Cloud. As soon as you have other people in your party, you can switch around to who you want to play as. So you can play as Barrett and keep shooting, you know, your arm gun if that's the way you want to play it. And one of the cool things that I really liked was once you start getting into weapon customization, you start getting these like skill points, and you can start unlocking it and building your sword into, you know, a weapon into more than just adding materia to it. You can start adding more materia slots to it. You can start adding more damage to it. You can start adding more magic power to it. So if you find more weapons that are better than your original Buster Sword, don't just trade it in. Go back and look, because a lot of people upgraded their Buster Sword and it's their final weapon. So that was one of the cool things. It wasn't just, I find a new weapon, I trash my old ones, I move on. You can custom make your old sword to be just as good, if not better, than anything you find late game. And once you see Sephiroth pop up in this game, you're just like, oh shit, it's finally here. And all I can think of is now, what are they going to do with Part 2? So I hope they take their time with it, but Final Fantasy VII Remake was everything I wanted it to be and more, minus a few gripes with the kind of overabundant side quests that you can do.
Nice. I mean, if anything, that's like the smallest gripe on anything that could have gone wrong with
exactly,
that game.
Yeah. It's not the combat's bad. You know, it's a side quest where I got to go find this girl's cats. That's what I didn't like doing. But I mean, everything else, man, is fantastic, and I can't wait for you to play it.
Yeah, that doesn't come out again until March, so I'm actually really excited for that. But in the meantime, what I did play this year, and actually excited to put something on my list that is from the Switch, is actually Paper Mario and the Origami King. Now, out of the gate, I know some people didn't enjoy the new combat. It is still kind of like a turn-based RPG, except for it's got a more puzzle mechanic as you're fighting. So some of the fights can feel a little repetitive, but I actually really enjoyed the puzzle mechanic. Like, at first, it kind of didn't make sense, but then eventually, once it kind of really clicked for me, again, there's even simpler ways to get past it, but with paying like the coins for it, which I know can defeat the purpose, but I still had a lot of fun with it. More importantly, when it brought it to the bosses, as far as like how you had to run, you have to set it up, the bosses in the center, and instead of you just going at them or moving them to make it so that way they're in the right spot, you actually have to run through almost kind of like a maze and pick up an attack, a special ability, or whatever, and the boss can use special abilities like tape or something to where when you're moving a puzzle piece, it's moving all these other ones out of the way for you. So that kept it interesting the whole way through. But more importantly, it was actually the world for this game that really did it for me. I loved every area that I went to. I can't really think of, except for actually kind of maybe like the Toad Town's my least favorite, but again, that's the first area you visit. But there was all kinds of places to make up for it. Like when you go out to the desert, there's like a whole city ran by Shy Guys. The heart is there in spades because there's so many funny scenarios all the way through that just had me dying. But some of my favorite set pieces were even like, there's a place called Shogun Studios, and it's just like a whole Japanese style theme park dedicated to like ninjas, which makes no sense, but it's just hilarious and it fits well in this world next to like this river in this big canyon. Or even towards the end, once you're running into other characters in this place called Shangri Spa, which is like just this big spa where everybody goes to, it still just had me laughing the whole way through. But either way, I definitely love this game like front to back.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, played it, loved it, great game. Moving on to my number one, and that is going to be Ghost of Tsushima by Sucker Punch. That came out in July. Now, this game is, in my opinion, the Assassin's Creed I've been waiting for. Like, this is exactly what I want. Something that's set in a particular time period that doesn't have to revolve around anything else. It's in feudal Japan. It's an action adventure game with heavy stealth mechanics, and that's what Assassin's Creed can be. And that's what a lot of people were trying to compare it to. And I know when this game was originally kind of being shown off, a lot of, it was, is it going to be good, or is it going to be an Assassin's Creed wannabe? And it ended up being the best of both worlds. It does everything. It takes combat to a different level. Instead of just being a hack and slash kind of game like most of the Assassin's Creed are, it brings you this combat that not only do you get like your bow and arrow and things like that and bombs, but you get 4 different stances of combat, and it's based on, the wind, earth, fire, water, and things like that. So it's really heavy in those kind of themes. The other cool thing is that the storyline with Jin Sakai is really cool to watch. He's battling with himself of who he used to be and who he's becoming. And I would say not only him, the other characters kind of steal the show. Like, some of my favorite people in that game, I just wanted to keep doing their side quests and kind of put him on the side because I want to see how their story ends. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. The stealth combat isn't the best, but it's definitely good enough. It is one of these games, I mean, we've mentioned Arkham Asylum before, but it's like Arkham Asylum meets like the original Assassin's Creed. It's got a lot of fun that you can do with your smoke bombs, with your poison darts, with, using your grappling hook to jump around. And the other cool thing is it's gorgeous. It's and they know it is because they've got so many different modes of how you can play the game. You can play it's almost movie-like. You can run it like the original kind of black and white, old Western styled. You can put it in full color. There's different kind of shades and stuff you can add into it. What they also did within the world is just little things that you don't really think about. The wind, when you're trying to figure out which way to your quest, instead of a big arrow popping up or dots to take you somewhere, the wind comes in and a gust will show you where to go. So it doesn't break the wall of, taking you outside of being in that era at that time. So there's other things like if you're looking for equipment or certain collectibles, you can find foxes. And they'll start running around and going up mountains and through forests and stuff. And you've got to find them and collect that. And it's really cool. It's got a nice fast travel system. It's got replayability. Once you beat it, you can keep playing it. It's got choices that are going to matter in this game. And to me, that's always what I care about, because in certain games, you've got all this dialogue option to do this, that, and the other. But this end result is still the same. So it doesn't really matter. There are multiple endings in this game, and that's up to you to decide how you want to pursue it. And overall, the other cool thing that kind of steals the show is they offered a big piece of just free content that is pretty much unheard of. In October, the Ghost of Tsushima Legends, the multiplayer, the co-op multiplayer came out of nowhere. Pretty much nobody even saw it coming, and it was absolutely free. And this is multiplayer where you can play as an assassin, a ronin, a samurai, a hunter. I was actually playing earlier today. They've all got different abilities. There's different things you can do. There's story missions that's for 2 players. There's 9 missions. There's quick play. There's survival. There's challenge mode. So there's more to it than just the story. There's also online combat. So if you are interested in either or, you've got both for the same price of just getting the game when you originally got it. I hope Assassin's Creed takes a page out of this book and stops doing what it's doing, because Ghost of Tsushima is fantastic. And if I'm not mistaken, they're already greenlit to do a Ghost 2, whether or not that's a direct sequel, but I know they're doing more in that world, and it was absolutely beautiful to play. So I highly recommend, if you got a PlayStation, go check it out.
The way people would talk about that game, a sequel is hands down. I don't see why not.
It's gorgeous, man. It's fantastic, beautiful to play, and I can't give it high enough praises. What's your number one, sir?
My number one game for this year is actually going to be Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, everyone knows that I love Yakuza since this year. I just started playing them because they came to the Game Pass. Again, get it. There's a million different games on there, but all the Yakuzas are going to be on there starting at the end of January, so why not jump in? It's a series that I absolutely love now, but the biggest thing is this is the newest entry into this game, and this one is actually a dramatic departure from the other games. This is not an action kind of brawler where you're going around fighting people. This game actually took my place of Final Fantasy this year, as like a JRPG where your people have classes and it's all turn-based combat. You have your standard hero class, you could have a defender, there's a break dancer who like does all kinds of like weird spins. The hobo class is the person who does magic and excels in fire. You could be, I think it's the hostess who serves drinks and stuff, is actually good at ice magic and doing that sort of thing. So I was actually really afraid that I wasn't going to like this game, and it kind of was a little slow at the start for me, but I ended up loving it and it being absolutely amazing and being everything that I think Yakuza is. It had that over-the-top story that I actually loved the new main character too, Ichiban. I thought he was absolutely great, and he kind of actually really, really grew on me that I might even like him a little bit more than Kiryu. Or I could see, I don't know how the other series ends, but I could definitely see how he could carry it going further. But again, this had everything that Yakuza is known for. Hilarious side missions, the over-the-top main just aesthetic to everything. It's a beautiful game. It was really fun to play, and again, it actually ran perfectly for me in a time right now when you have stuff like Cyberpunk where everything's crashing or whatever. Not for me, of course, but for lesser systems, this game just really hit the spot. And crazy enough to think that this game actually started out as, when they revealed it, they showed it off as an April Fool's joke to where Yakuza was going turn-based. But the reception of it was so positive, they just took the ball and kind of ran with it. So I thought, again, it was such a bold change in the direction that I love it. I still think that I want more of the brawler, but there's room for both. And for something to take what works for them perfectly and completely turn it on its head into a different style system, I think this game absolutely nailed it. And this game was just phenomenal for me this year. It was definitely my favorite thing to play.
It was a very bold gambit that they
very
did.
Bold gambit.
Yeah, Sega's on a big swing with that, and I know a lot of people are starting to love the Yakuza game, so now's the perfect time to jump in. So guys, that is the end of our list. Let's do a quick recap. So my number 5 was Immortals: Phoenix Rising. My number 4 was Ori and the Will of the Wisps. My number 3 was Spider-Man: Miles Morales. My number 2 was Final Fantasy VII Remake. And my number 1 game for 2020 was Ghost of Tsushima.
And then mine was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot for number 5. Number 4 was Cyberpunk 2077. Number 3 was Resident Evil 3 Remake. Number 2 was Paper Mario Origami King. And then number 1 was Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Awesome. So guys, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And feel free to follow us on any of our other social medias. We have it on Facebook at LastCall Productions. We have Instagram at LastCall Productions, Twitter at LastCall PRODZ, and we have another show that we do that revolves strictly gaming, is Last Call Gaming, which you can find on YouTube, and audio-only podcasts on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and CastBox. So that is our games for 2020. Jump down in the comments, leave your list down below, because I will give just real quick honorable mentions. Is Doom Eternal was so close to making my list. That game was so much fun. Didn't you have an honorable mention too?
If I had an honorable mention, it came out this year to Xbox, but it's been out before, and that would actually be Yakuza 0, and that's what started my love for the series.
Nice. So guys, I want to hear what your top 5 are. Let us know if we're wrong in ours. And again, Last of Us 2 didn't make either list because it was a game we actually played together and beat. So that is the end of this episode, guys. My name is Craig Perales, and that is Mandrew Montemayor. And until next episode, cheers.
See ya.